Welcome to the Forensic Corner. So, today we are going to discuss a very sensitive topic on sexual assaults. Sexual assault is being increasing day to day in the society, and people are staying updated. That is a good thing, I would say, because if you are updated from that what type of cases are happening around you and how are they being investigated and what type of science is involved behind their investigations, they stay updated and probably they are always alert, right? So today we have one such person, Lavinia B Masters, who is a victim advocate, and she is currently working to help the sexual assault survivors, and also she is promoting the DNA technology. She herself was raped at the age of 30. Now you can just imagine what mental condition she would be facing by that age. Okay. So after 21 years, DNA technology was able to help her identify who her culprit was. Okay. So from that moment onwards, DNA technology was like not a trend, back then. Not many people knew about DNA technology, but because of the OJ Simpson case, DNA technology was highlighted, and because of that, Lavinia ma'am was able to find out who her culprit was. So similarly, today Forensic Corner is bringing you that how a person who was suffering from 21 years long of depression was able to overcome it, and how she realized that DNA technology had a potential in the modern times, so she started working towards it. So let's find out what her story is.
So there's a famous saying by Maya Angelou that you may not control all the events that happen to you, but it's you who can decide how to not be reduced by them. Greetings of the day, ma'am. Warm regards from the Forensic Corner. I am Nandini Gupta, the host for the day, with my co-host Prashant Singh, who could not make up for this interview. We are very delighted to have you with us for the talk of the day on the sexual assault survivor, a journey of a girl of misery to the woman of ministry. And we are basically young forensic enthusiasts, and we aim to spread scientific awareness through our initiative, the Forensic Corner. How did the thought came to mind to counsel and help these sexual assault survivors?
Well, what happened was I and myself am a survivor of sexual assault. I was raped when I was 13 years old in my home, and my case went unsolved for over 21 years. My case went unsolved for over 21 years. I was 13 years old, and I lived in the Dallas area. And so the night of the rapist came in through a window downstairs. I was asleep on the couch, and he raped me violently at knife point. So all this time, I had no idea who he was, where he came from, how did he come to choose me as his victim, or what have you. And so, as a child, you're thinking that maybe the police are going to find your rapist or find out who assaulted you. Well, from there, we called the police. The police came out. They did a report. They took me to the hospital at the time, and I call it my second victimization because of how the police talked to me. They asked me questions like, are you sure you didn't know him? Are you sure it wasn't your boyfriend? Are you sure you didn't let him in? And you made this story up so your mom would know you were having sex. I was very distraught of the treatment that I received as a victim after being raped, especially as a child. So we go to the hospital, and so now we're at the hospital, and they have me in the hallway on a gurney. And on this gurney, the police are still talking to me. People are looking at me. They don't take me in privacy in a room. I'm like literally in the hallway, blood everywhere, clothes ripped torn. They're questioning me again, and it's like I saw him, but he was not in those books that they were trying to show me that night. So fast forward, I go through life, going back to school when school started back, because it happened July 31st in the summer. No counseling, no therapy, no talking about anything. And my life kind of went into a turmoil. So here I am. I got married when I was 19 years old, or was I 20? I think I was 19 years old. And so I got married, and I realized that my marriage was hitting rock bottom. I was having issues in my marriage, as well as I had miscarried more children as it was progressing. And so my doctor, my gynecologist, after I think I want to say my fourth miscarriage, we have one surviving son. He wanted me to go to therapy because I refused to go back to work. Now I'm in a total depression. I went through my sexual assault. I didn't talk about that to anybody. My husband knew, but nobody in my family, of course, but nobody else knew. This was not a conversation piece as I do now. This was something that I held within because I didn't have any answers. I didn't know who raped me. I didn't know why. He said that he knew me and my family. And if I ever said anything, he would come back to haunt me, to kill me, basically. So that haunted me forever and a day going through life. So I go to the counselor, and I know I'm kind of long-winded, but I'm getting to a point. I go to a counselor, and I go to talk about me miscarrying my baby and the severe depression that I'm in, and that, we're trying to figure out how to get me back to work. Now, I don't remember, even to this day, me telling that counselor anything about my sexual assault. But once he finished talking to me, he goes, Mrs. Masters, in order for you to move forward in your life or any kind of progression, he said, you're going to have to deal with the root cause. And I looked at him like, and what are you talking about? What's the root cause of miscarrying children? And he said, you're going to have to deal with your rape. And it's like he threw me back in time when he said that. And I'm like, what? How did he know about this? And to this day, because I didn't have the nerve to go back and ask him, but to this day, I still wonder what exactly did I say for him to understand that I had been a victim of rape. So I knew then, okay, this is my problem. This is my issue. I need to figure out who it was that raped me and work on those issues of, my anger, my bitterness, my frustration, all the fighting I did coming up after that. I need to just work on these things. And so I went on I call it my healing journey, because I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what to do. And I know I love my husband, and I love my baby that I did have, my son. And I knew that I had to make myself better for them. So I went on my healing journey, and the only thing that really still hindered me through the process over the years was not knowing who it was that raped me. Because now it's like you become detached from reality, and you ask yourself, did that really happen to me? Did I know him? I mean, you start questioning your own sanity because you don't have those answers. And I almost let go of it. I almost just tried to resolve and say, this is how I would live for the rest of my life, with not any answers of who it was that raped me. Well, about 2002, I felt I had overcame enough where it's time for me to get out and give back to society and helping others find their way of healing, their map of healing through their faith and their inner strength and the power they have. And so I started my journey of doing that. And once about 2003, I remember talking to my husband, and I said, you know what? I would love to, because it just went, I couldn't let it go. I said, I would love to know who it was that assaulted me. But I didn't know I had heard about DNA from the O.J. Simpson case. That was the big famous thing here, probably all over the world, but I know here in America. But I didn't just really figure out I didn't understand the whole concept of what DNA was, and how that technology was, and what it can do, and how it can help you. Well, fast forward, my husband was like, pray about it, because we are people of faith, and I did, and it was like the beginning of 2004 where I saw an article in the Dallas Morning News, and it was for the Dallas CCAP program. Now, CCAP stood for the Sexual Assault Cold Case Program, and there were certain criteria. It had to be stranger on stranger. It had to be old cold cases, and I forgot the other criteria. But in Dallas County. And the thing about it was, at this time, the Debbie Smith Act had passed federally here, so we had funding to go back and open up these old cases. The only thing about it was the victim had to come forward and say, I want my case open. So I'm like, okay, my prayers are answered. Let's see what happens. Let's see what this DNA is all about. And so that's what I did. I called the Dallas Police Department. It took them a few months to find about a month to find my information, because I couldn't remember a lot of the details. All I could remember was that I was 13 years old. I couldn't remember the date, the time, the address, none of that. And I knew it was in the middle of the night. So they finally found that. And when they found that, they came back and did a buccal swab of me. And Sergeant Welch explained to me is that can get my DNA and separate it from my perpetrator's DNA. But he also informed me that because my case had went cold, that I had missed 2 statute of limitations, which meant I missed one. The laws in Texas used to be 5 years after the rape, and then as the laws had changed, it was 10 years after your 18th birthday. So unfortunately, I had missed both of my terms. But the kicker was, if I had even had an opportunity to find him, because the laws then were, if he had never committed a felony, that he would not be subject to submitting his DNA into the database. So there was a big chance that I took. But I felt that I was on a journey of healing. I felt that I was on a journey of helping others. And I was convinced that things would go in my favor. I honestly did. And to my surprise and my amazement, they did. Because like I said, I really didn't understand DNA. I didn't understand the forensic technology. And so when all of this happened, this took about almost a year for them to solve my crime with the DNA. And I remember when Sergeant Welch called me, I was at home, him and Pat Keaton, the victim coordinator, they came to my house because they told me we have a hit. And when he told me that on the phone, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. I mean, they told me what this technology could do, but it's like, I was still skeptical about it. You know, I'm like, I don't understand how my rape was so long ago, over 20 something years, and you're telling me that you have a hit, you can identify somebody with this and place them at that scene of the crime. And the worst thing I wanted to happen was to falsely accuse someone, you know, or bring them in a place where it was not them. And so I had a lot of questions until they arrived at my home. And Sergeant Welch, I'll never forget, they sit at my table and they were reading my paperwork, and they were reading the guy's MO, which basically he was a serial rapist. And he was actually in prison at that time because he raped, and then he went to prison, he got out, and he had violated parole because when he got out, he went back and sexually assaulted again. Same way he did me, going in through a window. This time he had raped an elderly woman. Well, when Sergeant Wells sat at my table, I never forget, my whole life just changed, because he showed me a photo of my perpetrator then. His name is Kevin Glenn Turner. And when I looked at him, first he showed me a picture of him now. And my mind is not registering that this is like 21 years later. So I'm having doubts. I'm immediately doubting DNA technology. I'm like, no, I don't think this is it, because I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, even though my eyes were closed, it was dark and I was crying, I still peeked through my eyes and I gave myself a good visual of him. I'm like, this is not the same guy. Sergeant Wells goes, Lavinia, you have to remember that, 20 something years have passed. You've changed and he's also changed. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's logic. And so he said, this is the picture of him now. And then he showed me the picture of him then. If I can tell you, Nandini, I was blown away. It's like I literally, he took me through a time zone and I warped back to that night when I was 13 years old. And I started crying uncontrollably. And I was like, that is him. That is him. It, as the young folks say, it freaked me out. I was like, oh my God. And it was so emotional. My husband, because my husband had came home to be with me, and because he was working when he came home to get the news, and Sergeant Rush, and everybody was just overwhelmed with emotions and tears, and they were turning their backs. And I was like, and I felt so bad that I had, but it was just, it was amazing to see how the science of DNA forensics, how it works, and it identifies people. And then from that point on, I always said DNA is a footprint from God. It's that imprint that He left here for us to know and connect and identify. And it was just amazing to me to see that, and the change that it made in my life, and how I knew that my call was even greater of what I was doing then, because I learned there were thousands of kits on the shelves in Texas, about 20,000 at the time, and then worldwide, nationwide, it was like close to 500,000. And so we didn't even count, different countries. This was just in America. So I knew I had something greater to be done, because there was technology, that God was on our side when it came to DNA, and He was showing us the things that we can do. And I always say, because I am a woman of faith, and I know the Bible says those things that are done in the dark will be revealed in the light. And I'm feeling this is part of what He was saying. These are the revelations. And if you don't believe in DNA, or if you don't grasp it, you don't board with it, you're missing. You're absolutely missing it. But that's how, and I know it's a long story, but that's how I got to the point where I knew that this was my calling of being a part of the DNA.
That's great, ma'am. And
Thank
that's
you.
really amazing, and it takes a lot of courage to share such a story, ma'am. I'm very proud of you, and it takes
Yes.
really, and it takes really guts to do that.